Alrighty, finally got the clutch kit, got all the parts lined up, got all the tools lined up. Gonna break into this thing shortly and swap the clutch. Okay, so I started with removing the right foot peg, just the two bolts. They're 12 millimeter. The clutch cable guard, I guess you would call it. These two here, I believe they were 10 millimeter bolts. And then the whole side cover here, just so you can get access to all the bolts on the bottom. I do have to drain the oil, so I'm gonna have to fire it up just to warm it up a little bit, and then I'll drain the oil. I'll have to keep an eye on these hoses so the exhaust doesn't burn anything over here. Probably should have done that after I drained the oil, but kind of got a head start on it the other day. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up. Hopefully the neighbors don't mind, because it's 10:59 p.m. right now, so. Probably just run it for about 30 seconds. Usually warm it up more when you're doing a regular oil change, but the oil in here only has about 600 miles on it, so unfortunately I gotta drain that off to do the clutch. Since that pipe's hot, I'm gonna just throw one of these bolts back in real quick, just to hold it off the hot pipe. Again, I probably should have took this off after, but oh well. Better, I guess I'll do a better job next time. Just make sure your hoses aren't touching the pipe. I'll probably put both screws in there. And then I believe it's a 17 millimeter. I'll just go do the oil draining right now. You're gonna have to loosen this nut on the clutch and then screw this outer clutch adjustment all the way in, so it puts slack in the cable down there, because you have to remove that cable from the clutch cover. That way you have some slack here to pull this off. Alright, the oil's still draining, it's still dripping a little bit. I just pulled the pan closer to my side. I'm going to start pulling these 8 millimeter cover bolts off. Just going to break them all loose first, and I'll switch to my T-handle. Alright. That is really weird, because I don't even see any gasket on the case. Actually, no, it's still on there. Looks like it stayed together though. So I might be able to get away with just using the same gasket. I'll inspect it a little bit better just to make sure. There are two dowel pins. There's one right here and one right here. That one stayed in the case. I'm going to move that one back over. Need to make sure to keep track of those guys. Alright, so we got some 10mm bolts here holding the clutch springs in. I'm going to hit those with an impact. So we'll compare the springs to the new ones. The ones in the kit are supposed to be 10% stronger. I'm going to pull this cover off and then just keep all the discs in there. Surface looks good on that one. These clutches actually don't look too bad. We'll check out the steel plates to see if there's any burn marks. It's a good chance it was just an issue with the springs being too light. When you pull these clutches off, you got to make sure, because the last one on, this one here, if you can see, it's actually offset from the other ones. So when you put it back together, make sure your last one is one notch over. Plates actually look pretty good, the steels. There's no real burn marks. Gonna need a dental pick for the deeper ones. Clutch material is actually, doesn't look bad. So I'm wondering if I could just, I think since I got it apart I'm going to swap it, but wondering if just springs would have made it good. Kind of looking at every plate just to see how it's doing. Grab a dental pick here. Almost. So getting this clutch kit was kind of a pain. I called pretty much every dealership in my city to see if anyone had a, well, this clutch kit specifically, but anything that would fit the bike. And everywhere I went or called, everyone said, yeah, I can order it for you. But I can order it for myself, you know, get it from Rocky Mountain or Partzilla. Save a bunch of money that way. So if you do have clutch issues, maybe start looking for your clutch kit early. Alright, that's all of them. You want to stack them up like that just so they're in order so you can put them back in if that's what you're doing. I'm going to go measure up the other clutches and see if there's an issue with the plates or if it was actually just a weak spring issue. Alright, so I tested the friction plates. The first one was actually within spec. So at first I was just going to leave that clutch kit intact and just get the springs tomorrow from the shop. But I started checking the rest of the friction plates, and 3 or 4 of them were out of spec. They're actually under the 2.8 millimeter service limit. So I went ahead and bust open the clutch kit, wiped out the packaging for the clutch on the inside. Gonna soak it with oil for a little bit, and then we'll start putting it together. I know there's a huge debate on what oil everyone uses. I'm not going to start that war again, but I've been using this stuff since the bike was new. I got 26,000 miles on it. I drive in like 115 degree weather during the summer, and I pretty much send it everywhere I go. So this stuff takes care of my motor. It's a little heavier weight than the Kawasaki full send, but this is a pretty solid oil. You guys can use whatever you want, but this is what I roll with. Just gonna pour a little in there. Cap this stuff, because if that falls over, it's 15 bucks dripping off the table. Just need to coat the clutches really good. I'll probably have to put some more in there. Liquid gold. I think I get it for a little cheaper than that, but definitely ain't cheap. And there's probably better ways of doing this, but we're just gonna do it this way. You don't want to touch the actual fiber with your fingers. So that's why I got the gloves on. I could probably just pour the oil in, and then the container's pretty clear. I'll just pour it back into the, except for that fuzzy. And we'll let these soak for a little bit. You don't have to soak the steels. Just the fibers. Hopefully there's no hole in this container. We'll find out in a second. Yeah, if you put these fibers in there dry, by the time the engine pumps oil and the oil gets in between the fibers, they'll basically like destroy themselves against the steel discs. So you definitely want to pre-soak these. And I'm making a mess, but whatever. Alright. So the OEM spring is on the right side, and the new one from the kit is on the left. The OEM one is a little bit shorter, but it's quite a bit softer. The one on the left is definitely a lot harder to push down. So hopefully that'll eliminate the soft spring issue. Putting the new plates in. You want to reference your old plates to know which order they go in, so friction goes first, and then so on and so on. So I'll start throwing those in. Okay. I did see a YouTube video on a 650 Ninja. Not sure which country the guy was from, but I couldn't understand them. He actually put that last friction plate in backwards, which the bike I think is still run, and I don't know why they have the last one out, but the manual does specify that the last one has to be offset by 1. And then the last friction has to be offset. Alright. So now I'm going to put oil in that bearing and then start throwing in the new springs. Alright, we're back. The one thing the manual does specify, I don't know how important it is, but on this pin here, it specs out to put moly lube on it, or like an assembly lube. So we're going to go ahead and put some on there. There's motor oil on there, but if it asks for it, we're putting it on. So I'll run that in. I'm going to slowly run them in with the gun. I do have torque settings on this one, but we're just going to run them in slowly. And we're just touching off with the gun. We're going to torque them down with the torque wrench. Alright. I'm going to inspect this gasket. I don't know if I want to scrape it off. It looks like 100% actually. It didn't rip anywhere or separate when I took the cover off. I think normally you want to swap out the gasket, which I do have a new one, but I think I'm just going to roll with this one here. When you go to install a clutch cover, this arm you have to pull back to about 90 degrees. And when you install it, it actually goes behind this little pin, and when you turn this, it captures it. So when you actually pull the clutch, it actually pulls this pin out. That's what separates the clutch plates. Alright, looks like the clutch cover bolts are the same torque spec, the 87 inch-pounds. Go grab an extension. With the lever adjusted to that 5 millimeters, you need to loosen that nut and adjust the cable length so you have the let's see here, it's 2 to 3 millimeters of play up top. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen that, tighten this up so it stretches that, and then I'll double check the 2 to 3 millimeters up top. I like using these MSR clean funnels. They have caps on both sides, so when it sits around in your garage, dust doesn't get in, it keeps them clean. That way you don't have to wash out your funnels before you use them.